Thank you for this opportunity to be here before all of you today. If you look at my website, I list the top 3 categories of people who are of concern to me in the state are all categories of people who can't vote for me. It starts with children, undocumented people, and people locked up in prison. So I'm getting to hang out with people who care about the first group that can't vote for me, and because you're advocates for them, I hope you'll see something important in what I have to share. I've spent the last almost 16 years now pastoring a church in central New Jersey with my wife, Stephanie, and we've gone from 35 people in the church to 3,500 people in the building now over those 15 years. And we have 50 countries represented through first-generation immigrants, and approximately 150 kids active in our community, representing tremendous racial and ethnic diversity. In addition, the nonprofits that I have started have built an on-site after-school program, an on-site enrichment program for infants and caregivers, which we call the Family Den, an on-site summer camp, and an on-site refugee-run restaurant that feeds free lunch and free and reduced lunch kids throughout the summer. And I also have 3 daughters of my own who are in public school, ages 13 to 8 in Highland Park. I'm surrounded by children and aware of what is beautiful about being a kid in New Jersey, and also aware of what's challenging. And additionally, providing pastoral care for people in need has given me a window into people's struggles. And I've come to understand how many of those struggles go back to the disadvantage during childhood in New Jersey. In 2006, I grew concerned for the many women in our community who are in their mid to late 20s who came seeking spiritual and financial and case management support from within my community and in the communities around me. I recognized that many of those who came our way had grown up in the system, bounced around from group home to foster family to relative, not finding stability and negatively impacting their education. Then they were emancipated into you're on your own now poverty at age 18. And at that time I said to my wife, if we're going to be ministers in New Jersey, we must get involved in the housing crisis that poor people are facing. And thanks to the state commitment to youth aging out of foster care that we were seeing around the year 2006, we were able to leverage funds through HMFA's Special Needs Trust Fund, and we were able to build housing on the roof of our church for 6 apartments for women aging out of foster care. And it's been a great success. Watching since when we completed it in 2008, watching for these 9 years, women coming and living with us, getting their community college degrees, some going on to Rutgers, others just getting jobs in the community and leaving after some years, having had a period of stability and leaving with money in the bank and the belief that they can make it in this world called New Jersey. Since then, in terms of housing for kids, my Affordable Housing Corporation, the Reformed Church of Highland Park Affordable Housing, has built housing for justice-involved youth in Newark. We have 2 buildings, one on Hawthorne Ave and one in the Ironbound, called Shimty Apartments for justice-involved homeless youth. And we've purchased and renovated houses for refugee families and asylee families throughout Middlesex County. I've carefully read the embargoed report that I was allowed to get a glance at this past week, and the report showed some encouraging signs. There are many poverty indicators that seem to be moving in the right direction. Around juvenile justice, major reductions in the number of imprisoned youth, though very troubling racial disparity remains among the few hundred that are still inside, and that has to be addressed. And it's a small enough number that it should be able to be addressed without us thinking this is going to take a tremendous amount of transformation. It's down in the hundreds. We should be able to change it immediately. Around health services, major reduction in uninsured children and youth since 2010. Though I think Obamacare is a Band-Aid, and I'm much closer to Mark Zinna's plan of single-payer Medicare for all, I'm thankful that we've seen a reduction in those who haven't had insurance. Fewer kids with asthma now than in 2010. That's good to see. Compared to the nation as a whole, on many child poverty indicators, our poor children we're not seeing growth in poverty in such a levels as some other states. But if I take off those rosy-colored glasses and really look at most indicators, the ongoing levels of poverty in this state are staggering. And with the exception of the dramatic reduction in the number of uninsured children, all other indicators seem to be fairly minor in improvement or we're holding steady. At the end of the day, 483,000 kids live in families bringing approximately $35,000 a year into their household income, 150% of the poverty level. Very troubling. So here are a few of my proposals that can dramatically help the lives of kids in New Jersey. New Jersey single-payer Medicare for all. Like I said, Obamacare has helped many kids get insurance, but it hasn't freed up the economic stranglehold that the health insurance industry has on our state. Healthcare is a right. It should not be commoditized and run with a profit motive. New Jersey single-payer Medicare for all, cradle to grave, will give high-level health care coverage for all. Wall Street execs, teachers, the working poor, kids, homeless, they all receive the same care. None of this multi-tiered stuff. Medicaid for the poor, better coverage for the rich. But the real new benefits to poor people in New Jersey, and especially to families with children, are economic that happen if we make this change with health care. If we release the fiscal stranglehold that the health insurance industry has on the state and its people, we'll see new monies that the state hasn't seen in years. If we're running excellent health services through a nonprofit single-payer management system that the state oversees, paid for by a 6% increase on the employee payroll side and a 2% increase on the employee side, we'll get better care for much less money. And here are the effects on children. $15 an hour wage becomes very doable when businesses now don't have that uncertain cost of the health insurance piece in the mix. If the cost of health care is stabilized through an employee payroll tax, larger businesses can pay workers more. 15 now becomes an easy reality, and 15 now is good for children. Workers in all businesses, large and small, won't have to be kept at 28 hours because people fear moving them into that full-time work where there's expectations. Employers won't worry that they can't afford to pay that health insurance, and they can have them work more hours. And parents working more hours at 15-hour minimum or better is good for kids in New Jersey. Workers can change jobs. The freedom to follow dreams and to move to a higher wage job without worrying about losing that health insurance, that you're staying stuck in work slavery because you're afraid to lose it. That can all end, and that's good for children. Towns will see major reductions in their school and municipal budgets as health insurance costs are slashed, not because care is reduced, but care gets better for teachers and municipal employees, and instead of funding this for-profit unnecessary industry, we've got more money for our schools. If municipal budgets are reduced, property taxes go down. And if property taxes go down, then rents stop rising at such a rate and may even go down. And that is good news for people who are poor. Next topic is housing in schools. The failure of New Jersey municipalities to live into the Mount Laurel agreements has led New Jersey to be a very segregated state, both economically segregated and racially segregated. By endlessly tying up affordable housing expectations in litigation for the past 42 years, and often it's those towns with the excellent schools that are tying up this stuff in litigation, right? 42 years is my entire life. Many towns have effectively maintained themselves as wealthy islands, as gated towns. And their schools, in turn, lack the diversity that they should have. We have islands of wealth and islands of poverty. We have Plessy versus Ferguson state, separate but equal kind of state in most places. But we know that separate but equal is not equal. We need Brown versus Board of Education schools, and we need a Brown versus Board of Education kind of town system as well. And our housing, if we'd really enforce affordable housing in every town, we would have towns that would be able to have Brown versus Board as sort of a feeling in our places instead of what we have today. Our future, rich and poor, and every race and ethnicity needs to become much more inextricably linked. As governor, I intend to combat the economic and racial isolation caused by the failure of Mount Laurel and COA, of the implementation of COA, by setting up a system where towns that haven't abided by affordable housing building expectations are required to incorporate families on SRAP vouchers into rental housing in their towns. If you're not going to build the housing, you got to provide the housing through SRAP vouchers that are forced in your town. And if that doesn't happen, then towns should be required to participate in redistricting, where an appropriate number of slots for students from families who would qualify for the affordable housing that should be there are bused into economically segregated communities so that there's more equality in all of our schools. Mass incarceration. Two-parent households have a better chance of creating financial and social stability. And the fact that many families are broken up by incarceration for nonviolent drug offenses is bad news for children. I am in favor of the legalization of recreational and medicinal cannabis, and I believe that decision positively impacts families because it will mean fewer parents are incarcerated. I am in favor of minimum wage jobs for people while they are incarcerated. especially for people with child support expectations. Parents who are locked up should be able to participate in the wealth of their family and to continue to support their family inside, instead of working for slave wages of $1 a day or indentured servitude at best, while they're often in there for long periods of time for nonviolent crimes. We could just let them out of those nonviolent crimes. That's another way to get at it. But while they're inside, they should be able to support their families. And I've got one sentence left before it's time for questions. Immigrants. Many of the struggles faced by immigrant families, especially undocumented families, is the inability to obtain a driver's license. It will be good for children if their parents can drive legally in the state so that they can get to places where they can make the money to take care of their families. And as governor, I will read weekly the name, or at least the profiles, of parents deported from this country by our president and his henchmen. I will draw attention to the absurdity of breaking up families and removing parents from children. And I'll stop there. I've got some environmental things for kids that I didn't have time to say, but I appreciate your time.